The Monday after we returned from the so-called family vacation, I was slumped on my couch, still in the hoodie I'd worn on the flight, debating whether my suitcase had made it from the car into the hallway. Spoiler, it hadn't. My apartment was quiet, too quiet, until my phone buzzed with a banking app notification. I opened it expecting maybe a small refund or a charge for airport snacks. Instead, my screen screamed back at me, $12,874.02. I blinked once, twice, 5 times, as though persistence could make numbers shrink. I refreshed the page, praying for a glitch. No glitch. My account looked like it had been mugged in an alley and was now limping along, pretending to be fine. My thumbs flew. Hey! Just saw a $12,000 charge on the card. Was that supposed to be split? 3 minutes later, Tessa's reply lit up the screen. It was for the whole family. Don't ruin the vibe. The vibe. God forbid I disturb the sacred family vibe while my savings were siphoned into luxury nonsense. I stared at the message, my rage bubbling like soda about to fizz over. My choices were clear: either fire back with a text long enough to get screenshotted into the family group chat labeled Catelyn being weird again, or keep it short, lethal, and calm. I chose calm. Then you'll love what's coming. No reply. She probably assumed I was joking, but I wasn't. I closed the app, swallowed cold coffee that tasted like regret, and opened a spreadsheet. Title: expenses. Tessa will never pay back. And oh, the memories poured in. Age 23. Tessa borrowed $500 for an emergency vet bill. The pet, a goldfish. The emergency? She forgot to feed it. The $500 vanished. Age 26. She borrowed my car for 2 hours. 3 days later, she returned it with a cracked bumper and a new boyfriend in tow. Age 29. I co-signed a lease because she couldn't scrape together the deposit. She was evicted within months for throwing a smoke machine-filled engagement party in a 1-bedroom. Every year it escalated. Every year I was the fallback plan, the responsible one, the walking ATM disguised as a big sister. The family group chat buzzed for days after our trip with fire emojis and sunset pics. Best vacation ever, family vibes, Tessa posted. Not a single mention of the money. I stayed quiet. I'd learned the rule: react too quickly, and you become the problem. Wait just long enough, and you become the story. By Thursday, my phone lit up again. Tessa calling. Hey, big sis, she chirped, as if she hadn't digitally mugged me 4 days earlier. Hey, I said flatly. So about the card? What about it? I know it looks like a lot, but it all balanced out, right? You got the points. I laughed bitterly. Ah, yes, the points. A whole 900 frequent flyer miles, enough to buy half a soda at the airport. She sighed, the sigh she always used when I was being difficult. We all benefited. Don't be weird. You've got that job that's like really stable or whatever. I work in IT, Tess, not as a human ATM. You're so dramatic. She laughed. Anyway, gotta run. We're looking at Tahoe for Labor Day. Talk soon? The line went dead. I stared at my wall fridge, buzzing faintly. Maybe it would be cheaper to let the fridge swallow me whole than survive another family trip. But instead, I opened an old desktop folder: receipts, emails, Venmo screenshots, canceled checks. 10 years of, can you spot me just this once, followed by disappearing acts. I hadn't saved them out of pettiness. I'd saved them because I knew deep down this day would come. That night, I Googled lawyers who specialized in fraud and small claims. By Friday, I had a meeting with Mr. Halpern. Even his name sounded like he'd made a career out of ending brunches. Saturday, I drove to my parents' house for what they called a casual family get-together. Translation: Tessa wanted an audience. I parked down the street folder heavy in my bag, knocked once. Tessa opened the door in a flowy white dress, glowing like she'd just been told she was the moment. Catelyn, she squealed, hugging me tight. Come in, we're just getting started. The living room smelled like overpriced citrus candles. Mark, her boyfriend, hovered with a tray of mimosas like an obedient prop. My parents smiled wide, desperate for peace. Tessa lifted her glass. So happy we're all here. Seriously, this is what family's all about. I nodded once. Then you'll love what's coming. And that was when the floorboards began to shake. Not a ghost, not divine karma. Just slow, deliberate footsteps, heavy enough to make the walls hum. Tessa, of course, didn't notice. She was too busy basking in her self-appointed crown as brunch queen. I turned toward the door and waited. Because that was all I needed to do. Wait. The man who entered wore his calm like a suit. Mid-60s gray hair, leather satchel slung over one shoulder. His voice was quiet but sharp. I'm looking for Tessa Morgan. That's me, Tessa said, automatically, smile plastered. He pulled an envelope from his satchel and handed it to her. You've been served. The room froze. Mark blinked. Mom's plate of avocado toast hovered midair. Dad mumbled from behind his newspaper. What's all this? Tessa stared at the envelope like it might hiss. Her face was stone, but her hand trembled. For someone who never stopped talking, she looked stunningly silent. Halper nodded at me. You have my number. I do, I said. He left as calmly as he'd entered, as though he had 6 more brunches to ruin before noon. Silence reigned. The fizz of champagne was the only sound. Mark broke first. What the hell, Catelyn? I tilted my head. Are you confused, or just hoping I am? You brought a lawyer to brunch. I didn't bring him. He brought the law. There's a difference. Tessa snapped out of her stupor. This is ridiculous. You're suing your own sister. Not suing, I said evenly. Just formally pursuing repayment since all other methods have failed. I told you I'd pay you back, she shouted. Really? Because I've got 30 messages that contain no apology, no payment, no plan. Unless don't ruin the vibe counts as legal tender. Dad shuffled. Come on, Catelyn. This is family. That line, I said coldly, has been used to excuse everything from unpaid rent to stolen identity. Unless you've got something new to say, sit this one out. He sank back, newspaper rising like a shield. Mom leaned forward, voice low. Sweetheart, you could have talked to us first. I did, I said. For years. I meant recently. You mean after the $12,000 charge? Or after a decade of being treated like a walking debit card with Wi-Fi? Her lips pressed tight. No comeback, Tessa muttered. This can't be real. This isn't happening. You know what's wild? I said. Neither can I. Mark had taken the spreadsheet I slid across the coffee table. Pages labeled and color-coded receipts from every favor since 2013. His eyes widened. This is detailed. I work in IT. If I can recover corrupted files, I can track down a missing 12 grand. Tessa's voice cracked. I didn't know it was that much. Then maybe don't put the economy of Santa Barbara on my card. Mark cleared his throat. Okay, maybe we went overboard. Wait. Fine. Tessa went overboard. But can't we settle quietly outside of court? Sure, I said. Pay me back in full, plus legal fees, plus interest. His jaw dropped. Are you serious? As a heart attack. This is humiliating. Tessa gasped. Correct. That's what happens when you make someone the villain in private and they decide to play the hero in public. You've always hated me, she snapped. No, I laughed. I've always pitied you. There's a difference. Her fists clenched. You think you're better than me? No, I think I'm done letting you convince me I'm worse. Mom whispered. Please, Catelyn, don't do this. I already did. I walked out air sharp in my lungs. For the first time in years, I felt no guilt, only space. I ignored my buzzing phone and drove without destination until the road blurred into quiet. At a park, I sat beneath a tree and finally breathed. Somewhere Tessa was screaming. Mark was Googling legal terms. My parents were rehearsing denial. And me, I was calm, but far from finished. 3 weeks. That's how long the silence lasted before the cracks began to show. At first, it was almost eerie. No calls, no group texts, no passive-aggressive emojis. Just a void. The family chat that once buzzed daily with photos of cocktails and sunsets now sat lifeless, like a room where the lights had been left on, but no one wanted to enter. Then came the first ripple. Tessa's clarification email arrived one Tuesday morning. The subject line, clearing the air. The body was a rambling performance about how I had generously offered to cover the trip and then changed my mind. She described me as stressed, overworked, prone to overreacting. She wrote that it had all been a miscommunication, nothing more. No mention of the $12,000 charge. No mention of the 10 years of debts and receipts. Just her version, curated, cropped, edited for sympathy. Some relatives bought it. I saw their names in the CC field and imagined them nodding along, clucking their tongues. Others stayed quiet, unwilling to pick a side. But a few, just a few, sent me private notes. Short ones. I get it. You did what you had to do. They weren't loud, but whispers of truth can echo louder than lies. Mark took a different approach. He emailed my lawyer directly. His offer he'd cover 1/3 of the money if I dropped everything. Mr. Halpern, true to form, responded with one perfect sentence. We are not interested in partial accountability. A few days later, Tessa posted a crying selfie to Instagram. Caption: Some people will betray you the second you stop giving. #stay strong. 3 passive-aggressive Bible verses followed. Her followers flooded the comments. You'll rise again, queen. Haters gonna hate. I almost laughed out loud. Enforcing boundaries had officially been rebranded as betrayal. But while she staged her melodrama online, I was rediscovering something else. Peace. At first, it felt strange. I slept, really slept, for the first time in years. No 3 a.m. awakenings replaying old arguments. No pit in my stomach about the next emergency loan. My appetite returned. I started cooking actual meals instead of ordering takeout between waves of guilt. At work, my focus sharpened. My boss noticed. Within weeks, I got a raise. Who knew that not being emotionally drained by family drama made you better at your job? Then came the letter, an envelope handwritten, no return address. I recognized the handwriting instantly, Mark's. Inside was a check for several $1,000s and a short note. She left me. Said I wasn't loyal enough during the whole thing. I should have stopped her sooner. I know this doesn't fix it, but it's a start. Mark. I didn't respond, but I didn't rip it up either. It was the first money I'd ever gotten back from that mess. Proof that even enablers eventually break. The civil suit didn't need a courtroom showdown. Tessa's lawyer folded after a few months of stubborn refusal to settle. Repayment began, not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. Automated payments trickled in small, grudging steady, each one like a crack in the old story. And then karma showed up to do its quiet work. A travel agency that had once partnered with Tessa cut ties. Someone forwarded them screenshots of the legal filing. She screamed about defamation, but the brand deal vanished overnight. Her Instagram stories grew darker. One day, it was vague quotes about loyalty. The next, blurry selfies captioned with Judas energy. But for once, I didn't bite. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I was done playing her PR game. Instead, I built a life. I moved into a new apartment with thick walls and no risk of surprise visits. I changed my phone number, updated my emergency contacts, and put Aunt Claire at the top. She was the only one who had reached out with something real. She sent me a handwritten card. You did the right thing. I wish I'd done it years ago. Claire. I cried when I read it. Not because it was sad, but because it was the first time anyone in the family acknowledged what it had cost me to finally say no. Still, the whispers continued. Some relatives blamed me. Some blamed her. Some pretended nothing had happened at all. That was fine. Let them squirm in their silence. I had finally stepped out of it. One evening, though, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Are you happy now? Tessa's voice cracked on the other end, frantic, brittle. You ruined everything. My reputation, my deals, my relationship. Mark's gone. Everyone thinks I'm toxic. I stayed quiet for a long beat, then said, "You did that, Tess. I just kept the receipts." "You're so smug," she hissed. "You've always wanted to see me fail." "No," I said evenly. "I wanted you to stop taking, that's all." She fell silent, and for a moment I thought she might cry. Then the wall slammed back into place. "You're pathetic. You'll die alone with your spreadsheets." She hung up. I stared at the phone. Once her words would have gutted me. Now they sounded like echoes in an empty hallway, loud but powerless. A week later, I ran into an old high school friend at a cafe. We hugged, swapped small talk. Then she lowered her voice. "Hey, I heard about your sister." "That's wild." I braced for judgment, but instead she shrugged. "Good for you. Most people never get out." The words stuck. Not pity, not praise, just recognition. And that's when I realized peace isn't fireworks. It isn't a victory parade. It's quieter, stranger. It's eating dinner without dread. It's scrolling past the bank app without breaking into a cold sweat. It's silence that isn't empty. It's space. But sometimes, in that space, doubts crept in. Nights when I lay awake wondering, had I gone too far? Should I have given her one more chance? One more conversation? Another round of disappointment disguised as generosity? The answer came slowly like dawn. If I hadn't drawn the line, then I never would have. And the cost would have been more than money. It would have been me. By the second month, the storm had dulled, but not disappeared. Repayments trickled in like reluctant raindrops. Each automated transfer was small, grudging, but steady. I tracked them in a new spreadsheet titled Closure. Not to gloat, just to remember. Proof that the ledger was finally turning in my favor. My parents tried to patch the silence with their own brand of guilt. Mom called, her voice carrying that old, weary sigh. "Sweetheart, couldn't you have just talked to us? You know how hard things are for your sister." Dad, from somewhere in the background, added his broken record line. "Can't we just move on?" I didn't argue. I'd learned you can't force someone to see what benefits them to ignore. Instead, I gave them silence too. Sometimes, silence is sharper than words. And then one Tuesday afternoon, the final repayment cleared. Balance 0. No thunderclap, no swelling music, just a notification pinging my phone while I rinsed out a mug. I stood there, mug in hand, water running, staring at the message. After more than a decade of being the fallback, the fixer, the wallet, my balance was clean. I dried the cup, placed it on the shelf, and smiled, quietly. That weekend, I walked back to the park where I had sat the day of the brunch ambush. Same bench. Same tree, its leaves whispering as though they remembered me. This time, there was no folder of receipts in my lap, no storm in my chest. Just space. Children's laughter floated nearby. Somewhere, a dog barked. The world moved on, and for once, I didn't feel like I had to carry it. Sometimes I wonder what story Tessa tells herself now. Maybe in her version, I'll always be the villain, the cold sister, the spreadsheet witch, the one who betrayed family. Maybe she believes it. Maybe she doesn't. But I don't need to know anymore. Her story isn't mine. My parents adjusted in their way. Dad now sends me sports articles via email, adding a one-line commentary like, "We're colleagues in some neutral truce." Mom calls about recipes, whether just checking in. We don't mention the lawsuit, not directly, but the air between us has changed. There's caution in her tone now, respect in her pauses. She knows there are lines she can't cross anymore. And Aunt Claire, God bless her stubborn honesty, still checks in sometimes with nothing more than 3 words, "Proud of you." Those words weigh more than a decade of sighs ever did. The greatest lesson was, this peace isn't glamorous. It's not a parade or fireworks or vindication shouted from rooftops. It's quieter. It's eating dinner without a lump in your throat. It's laughter that doesn't hide a bruise. It's money spent without resentment. It's realizing silence isn't empty, it's space. And in that space, you finally hear your own voice. To anyone listening now, maybe you know that ache, the ache of being the strong one, the reliable one, that you're doing fine so you can cover it one. Maybe you've been told not to ruin the vibe even when the cost was your sanity. Maybe you've wondered if saying no made you cruel. Here's the truth. I wish someone had whispered to me years ago, saying, no doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. The moment I set that boundary, my life shifted. Slowly, awkwardly, imperfectly, but shifted all the same. And if you're standing where I once stood holding receipts that feel like a ledger of betrayal, hear me. You don't have to keep paying for someone else's comfort. You're allowed to build your own. So yes, Tessa was stunned when that lawyer placed an envelope in her hand. She thought I was bluffing. She thought I'd fold like always. But sometimes the only way to stop being the family doormat is to close the door. And let me tell you, when you finally do, the air on the other side is sweeter than you can imagine. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, even a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. And please drop a comment below. What was the moment you finally said enough? I'd love to hear your story.